Today's class will be given by His Grace Abhay Kulkarni Prabhu and Her Grace Rohini Mataji. Both are very familiar to our congregation, does not need any introduction, but our purification, telling few words about them. Mataji and Prabhu, one of the senior devotees in our congregation and selflessly serving in the background and big support to our temple. Abhay Prabhu performs Kirtan at devotee houses and glorifies the Lord's name. And Prabhu well noted as Gandharva of Austin. Rohini Mataji doing many services such as cooking, cleaning, garland making, and also conducts Bhagavad-Gita classes on Friday for temple. They won't take any recognition and a symbol of humility. They surrender to Guru and Krishna. With that, we will welcome both Mataji and Prabhu with loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra once.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you, Prabhu. So much
We're not able to hear online, Prabhu.
If you bring the mic closer, Prabhu, that may be
Hey, Prabhu, another mic you can give it. Oh.
Bhagavad-Gita, Prabhupada, Jai Gaur, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna devotees, today we will read from Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 13, verse 15. Chapter 13, verse 15.
All of them.
13, 15. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarvabrich Shaiva Nirgunam Gunabhaktur Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarvabrich Shaiva Nirgunam Proktu cha
Nirgunam Gunabhokta
सर्वेन्द्रिय गुणाभासं
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
सर्वेन्द्रिय विवर्जितं
Vivarjitam
असक्तं सर्वभूतैव
Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva
गुणं गुणभोक्तृ
Nirgunam Gunabhokta
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
Sarvendriya Vivarjitam
Sarvendriya Vivarjitam
Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva
Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva
Proktu cha
Nirgunam Gunabhokta
सर्वेन्द्रिया गुणाभासं
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
सर्वेन्द्रिया विवर्जितं
Sarvendriya Vivarjitam
असक्तं सर्वभृश्चैव
Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva
गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च
Nirgunam Gunabhokta
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva Nirgunam Gunabhokta
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
Sarvendriya Vivarjitam
Sarvendriya Vivarjitam
Asaktam Sarvabhrichaiva
Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva
Nirgunam Gunabhokta
Nirgunam Gunabhokta
Mataji.
सर्वेन्द्रिय गुणाभासं
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
सर्वेन्द्रिय विवर्जितं
Sarvendriya Vivarjitam
असक्तं सर्वभूतैव
Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva
निर्गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च
Nirgunam Gunabhokta
सर्वेन्द्रिय गुणाभासं
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
सर्वेन्द्रिय विवर्जितं
Sarvendriya Vivarjitam
असक्तं सर्वभूतैव
Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva
निर्गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च
Nirgunam Gunabhokta
सर्वेन्द्रिय गुणभासं
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
सर्वेन्द्रिय विवर्जितं
Sarvendriya Vivarjitam
असक्तं सर्वभूतैव
Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva
गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च
Nirgunam Gunabhokta
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, go ahead. This side.
Hare Krishna. Can I read it, Prabhuji?
Yes, yes, Mataji. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Sarvendriya gunabhasam
Sarvendriya Gunabhasam
Sarvendriya vivarjitam Asaktam sarvabhruchaiva
Asaktam Sarvabhikshaiva
Nirgunam gunabhoktracha.
Nirgunam
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. So, translation, intertranslation, purport, translation, purport by Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
The super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature.
Supreme Lord, although the source of all the senses of the living entities, doesn't have material senses like we have. Actually, the individual souls have spiritual senses, but in conditioned life, they are covered with the material elements, and therefore the sense activities are exhibiting through matter. The Supreme Lord's senses are not so covered. His senses are transcendental and therefore called Nirguna. Guna means the material modes, but his senses are without material covering. It should be understood that his senses are not exactly like ours. Although he is the source of all our sensory activities, he has his transcendental senses, which are uncontaminated. This is very nicely explained in Shvetasvara Upanishad 3.19. In the verse, Apani Pado Javano Grita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no hands which are materially contaminated, but he has his hands and accepts whatever sacrifice is offered to him. That is the distinction between the conditioned soul and the super soul. He has no material eyes, but he has eyes. Otherwise, how could he see? He sees everything, past, present, future. He lives within the heart of the living beings, and he knows what we have done in the past, what we are doing now, and what is awaiting for us in the future. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad-Gita. He knows everything, but no one knows him. It is said that the Supreme Lord has no legs like us, but he can travel through space because he has spiritual legs. In other words, the Lord is not impersonal. He has his eyes, legs, hands, and everything else. And because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we also have these things. But his hands, legs, eyes, and senses are not contaminated by material nature. Bhagavad Gita also confirms that when the Lord appears, he appears as he is by his internal potency. He is not contaminated by the material energy because he is the Lord of material energy. In the Vedic literature, we find that this whole embodiment is spiritual. He has his eternal form called Satchidananda Vigraha. He is full of opulence. He is the proprietor of all wealth and the owner of all energy. He is the most intelligent and is full of knowledge. These are some of the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the maintainer of all living entities and the witness of all activity. As far as we can understand from Vedic literature, the Supreme Lord is always transcendental. Although we do not see his head, face, hands, or leg, he has them. And when we are elevated to the transcendental situation, we can see Lord's form. Due to material contaminated senses, we cannot see his form. Therefore, the impersonalists who are still materially affected cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Om Jnana-Timirandasya Jnana-Anjana-Shalakaya Chakshurummilitam Yena Tasmai Shri-Gurave Shri Chaitanya Mahavishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Bhagavatam Dadati Swapadam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudhavatam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sarvadam Sajivam Sajivam Sarvadutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Radha Saranandita Shri Shakam Sham Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Vanda Radha Vanda Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Vancha Kalpatarunasya Kripa Sindhubhya Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama. Thank you so much, devotees. So first of all, we express our gratitude to His Prabhu and Mataji for giving us this service. We personally feel very unqualified. But with your mercy and blessing, we try to do the service to the best of our abilities and for our own justification. We pray to you and the Vaishnavas in the Assembly for giving us secret blessings. Thank you so much. So this chapter of Bhagavad-Gita deals with Sankhya Yoga. So Rohini will take turns and I'll try to do the preliminary part and then she will do the later part of this class. So basically, the Sankhya Yoga means the analytical description of the matter, the soul, and the controller of both. That's analytical study. So let's talk about how this is coming place into Bhagavad-Gita. So in chapter 2, when Arjuna talks about his inability to fight, so we see that the reasons that he gives, like he thinks the killing his kinsman is sinful, or even if he wins the war, he won't be able to enjoy it because his kinsman will be dead. So we see that these are like the personal reasons or a personal sensitification. He's trying to put that ahead of his duty. So Lord Krishna does is he explains the distinction between the body and soul in chapter 2. He explains that the nature of the soul is eternal. So even if you kill the kinsmen, their bodies will die, their souls will not die because they are eternal. So this is Sankhya Yoga. So of course later on Lord Krishna explains and advises Arjuna to act in the devotional service. Now, as a little background, Lord Krishna also spoke about the Sankhya philosophy when he incarnated as Lord Kapila. And then he instructed his mother Bhagavad-Gita. This is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, third point of 25 to 29 chapter. So there is no difference between the Sankhya Yoga that Lord Krishna described as Lord Kapila as well as what he's describing in Bhagavad-Gita. They are exactly the same. So the Lord's instructions, since he is perfect, he is absolute, they do not change over a period of time. So, so let's talk about the difference between the Sankhya Yoga and the Bhakti Yoga or the devotional service. So as we just talked, the Sankhya Yoga is the analytical expression of the soul, the matter, and the supreme enjoyer. And what is the devotional service or Bhakti Yoga? It is for working in satisfaction for Krishna. That's the Bhakti Yoga. So how do these two yogas connect? So the Sankhya Yoga helps us do the Bhakti Yoga in a proper way. It lays a foundation. The Sankhya Yoga helps us do Bhakti Yoga with more maturity. For example, it lays a foundation. For example, like when we are building a house, we need a foundation, and then we kind of like with the walls, and the windows, and the roofs, and everything. So it kind of gives you a foundation. It kind of helps you understand the ultimate goal of Bhakti. Now, how they are related? So we say that the Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, they are interdependent. So what does that mean? What that means is they are like religion and philosophy. We say that the religion without philosophy is a sentiment or a blind faith, and the philosophy without religion is mental speculation. So how do we understand that? We can understand that as an example. So while I was growing up, I learned about this family tradition in my family. So when a child is born, like a baby is born, before they put the baby in the crib, they would put a grinding stone. Everybody knows grinding stone. Grinding stone to make chutney. So the grinding stone is put first into the crib, and then they would put the baby. So I was kind of inquired my mom that what is that process, and so she told me. Well, I asked the same question to my mother-in-law, because like when the woman marries, she goes into the other family. So the mother-in-law gives us, this is what is the process. So then the mother-in-law explained her that well, long time back, there was some woman in their family, and the babies would be born and they would die. So then they figured a process that if they put a grinding stone in the crib first, and then the baby survives. And then ever since that kind of became a family tradition. They must make sure that the grinding stone goes first and then the baby. So of course, the grinding stone and baby don't go together, but that's what they would be doing. So the thing is that we can see that like there is no scientific evidence or spiritual evidence of doing that. But the thing is that we are just following this process. Similarly, on the other side, you are just simply following the philosophy. There is no touch, there is no connection to the Lord. In that, what happens in that case is we do a dry speculation. Like nowadays we see that there are so many editions of Bhagavad-Gita. They are there. So what everyone is doing is, well, if someone has little academic knowledge of Sanskrit or when they are scholars, they would start writing their own book, and then they would try to put whatever translation they think in that book. So the thing is that knowing they don't have any connection whatsoever with Krishna, they are trying to interpret this knowledge by themselves. But is that good enough? No, it's not. Because what Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita is, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavam yashyami tapato. Only my devotee or my bhakta knows me the way I am. So we have to make sure what we read, what we consume philosophically. We have to be very careful about that. Like we follow simple things. For example, before we put anything in the mouth, we make sure that it's healthy. It's good for us. We don't eat anything which is soil or water, because if we accidentally eat something like that, we immediately get sick. So similarly, we have to be careful about what philosophies we are reading. If we are reading something which is not authentic or which is not coming from an authorized source, it will pollute our consciousness. Srila Prabhupada gives an example of such a philosophy is like the milk which is touched by the tongue of a poisonous serpent. You will not find out, but then your consciousness is not polluted. So Bhagavad-Gita is a combination of the two. It also explains you the philosophical aspect, and also giving you the process. It's giving you a good combination of the two. Okay. Now, Lord Krishna explains about Sankhya Yoga in chapter 2, chapter 3, and now we are talking about chapter 13. So Lord Krishna is slowly expanding on that concept. He's giving like more of an in-depth or drill down of that process in the chapter 13. In chapter 13, Lord talks about a couple of key concepts, the Kshetra, Kshetrana, and knowledge. So let's talk briefly about that. So what is Kshetra? Kshetra means field. Lord defines the body as a field, that is the Kshetra. And the body is powered by the soul. Nowadays, like we see a lot of websites just powered by. So this field or this body is powered by soul. And then what we do is we use this body and senses to fulfill our desires. So I was thinking the other day, like everybody brushes our teeth. So we take the toothpaste in the morning and then start squeezing. So a materialist person, like a person who is too much into sense gratification, that's what they are doing. They're picking up the toothpaste and every day they are squeezing, And then when they come to the end of the toothpaste, they're kind of like rolling it somehow, trying to squeeze it out. So that's what they are doing, So we have to. The thing is that process goes on, and then when the toothpaste is finished, we move on to another toothpaste. So like our desires they are near complete. So our body it stops helping us fulfilling our desires, so we move on to another body. So that's what is going on. Another aspect is being able to enjoy. Like everybody wants to enjoy, but can we enjoy in this body unlimitedly? The answer is no. We cannot enjoy unlimited. There is always a cap. There is always a limit to which we can enjoy. For example, eating. So, like Jeff Bezos is the richest man supposedly on the planet. Do you think he can eat a truckload of food? I mean, he can only eat as much as a normal person. So again, like you can have a limit. For example, like nowadays, people think sex pleasure is the greatest pleasure, but can you be involved in it unlimited time? No, so there is a limit for that. I mean, it's like it's like a horse which is tied to a 10-foot rope. So if horse is tied to a 10-foot rope, all the horse can go is around a 10-foot diameter. Cannot go beyond that. So similarly, like these limits, they stop us, getting that unlimited sense pleasure. And sometimes what we do is we always try to cross the limits. Sometimes and we know that we are not supposed to eat a lot, but what we do is sometimes we overeat. And then what happens that night? We start having heartburn, and then we are running, the big fat comes in the medicine cabinet and everything. Somebody likes to watch movies, and then they kind of do like a binge watching, like one movie, another movie, third movie, and by the end of that binge watching, they are having a headache. So the thing is that it kind of like gives us a glimpse that we cannot enjoy unlimitedly. Like going back to the example of the horse, if the horse understands that following the directions of the master is the right way, then probably there would not be a hope, to begin with. But the thing is that the whole world is kind of going crazy after that. Everybody is constantly in the mode of fear or anxiety or lamentation that I cannot get enough. But what happens is the process that we are recommending is chant the names of Hari. When we chant the names of Hari or Krishna, these uncleanness thoughts, these propensities, they start sliding up. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Cheto Darpana Mahajana. So when we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it cleans the impurities from our heart. Just like when it starts raining and then you turn on the wipers, the wipers starts cleaning the windshield. So similarly, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is cleaning up our heart like that. So let's chant everyone, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'll talk about those the Kshetra Jnana, like he says like the soul is the knower of the body. So that means is the soul and the body are two different. I mean that's a very, very fundamental building block of a lot of understanding that is provided in the Bhagavad-Gita, that we are not this body. Everybody remembers the verse from the second chapter. Dekino yasmin yatha dekhe omaram yovanam jara tatha dehantam nirasvatana. So what is happening? This body is changing. This body is changing every minute. It takes birth from the womb of the mother's body. It remains for some time. Then it grows. It produces some effects, like of creating offsprings. And it gradually dwindles and it finally vanishes. An old man who sits in the porch and he looks at his grandchildren, and then he would say, "Hey, I remember I used to play like that." But he cannot anymore. Like he has become 85 years old. He's kind of like in that dwindling phase there. but he remembers. So what that means is the soul as a person is remaining the same and the body is changing. So body is the non-permanent part of that. It deteriorates. You know, like when somebody goes to jail, they get a uniform. Everybody in the jail is wearing a uniform. So think of this body as a uniform that we are wearing. So why somebody goes to jail? Because they stolen somebody's property. So that's what probably we have done. This material nature, the material nature belongs to Krishna. But what we are doing is we are trying to enjoy and to steal his property. And then in that process, what happens is we get this body. So this body is like that. Another thing to understand is, we talk about designations now. Nowadays, everybody is, trying their best to get designations. Like as soon as there's a body, we identify the body as I'm a man, you are a woman, I'm Indian, you are Chinese. Nowadays, like we have gender neutral designations. So these designations are like stickers. So we can put a sticker someplace and then it can be removed. So because the designation may change, when designations change. For example, somebody wants a lottery and then they get rich overnight, but then next day somebody comes and steal their income. Or they start gambling and then lose all the money, they are poor. So then the designation changed overnight. So a devotee of the Lord or a Vaishnava, they don't get involved at that level, because through their service, through their knowledge and understanding, they operate above the body level. The senses that we have, we use our senses for our own sense gratification, but we need to think that who is the owner of these senses. The owner of the senses is Krishna. So one of the Krishna's name is Rishikesha. He is the owner of the senses. So we have to use our senses in the service of the Krishna. In the Charitamrita, it is mentioned Rishikena Rishikesha Sevana Bhakti Uchate. When we serve Krishna, then two things happen. Number one is we get freed from material designations, and our senses are purified. Those two things happen. Then Lord Krishna talks about the super soul. So he says, well, soul is one of the knowers of the body, but then there is another knower, and he is the super soul. So who is this super soul? Super soul is Lord Krishna himself. Lord Krishna gives the proof in the Bhagavad-Gita himself. In chapter 15, Lord says, Sarvasya chaham radi sanvishto mattas mati jnanam apovanamcha. In 18th chapter, he says, Ishwaram Sabha Bhutanam Radeshya Krishna. So Lord confirms himself. At the same time, several other devotees, like there are mentions in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Gajendra's prayer. Gajendra prays, Namo Atma Pradipaya, Sakshine Paramatmane, Namo Gram Vituraya, Manasachesta Samati. So that Lord Krishna, he is the super soul himself, who has expanded himself and accompanying the soul in this body. So what is the difference? The difference is both of them being the knowers of the body. The soul knows about only the individual body, and the super soul knows about all the bodies because he is the proprietor. Srila Prabhupada gives this example that one may know about his own patch of land, but the king, or like in the modern terms, if you say the county, knows about all patches of land in that city. So that's how like the Lord knows about everything. He knows about all the different bodies. A soul is fallible. A soul can make a choice and it can fall down. And when it falls down, it gets its body. But then what happens is it forgets what it did previously. But the super soul never forgets anything. When somebody can say, well, why do I forget? Well, there are some reasons. The reason is that, well, sometimes, if somebody thinks about, the bitter experiences in their life, they feel pretty low. So imagine what would happen if you are able to remember everything else that has happened to you. You would be a very bitter person. And another way to look at it is when you actually do not forget, what happened in your previous lives. You actually carry that as your propensities in this life. So the propensities that we have in this life, they are in an impression of whatever happened, whatever memories that you have from the past. For example, like somebody, they can we use all of those idioms. Like somebody is like a cow, so You can imagine like what impression they are showing, or somewhere like rolling around like a pig. So that the thing is that so those impressions are kind of like coming from our past activities or past births. So I have one question of points now.
So the contradictions that is shown in this verse, it also shows the inconceivable power of the Lord. And so to understand this, we need to understand that the transcendental nature of the Lord and qualities of the Lord. So Supreme Lord is Anadi. He is the cause of all the causes, but he has no cause. And he also the cause of spiritual world as well as the material world. So sure. So Srila Prabhupada says that God is great, but we should know how great God is. And with our limited capacity, we cannot understand God's greatness and transcendental nature because we have imperfect senses. And because we have imperfect senses, there is limitations. We cannot use these senses, and we use the same senses to acquire the knowledge. So the knowledge that comes with it is also imperfect. So if we get in the dark, very pitch dark, we cannot even see our hand. So what to talk about seeing the God? So, and Srila Prabhupada says that we cannot even see the spirit soul, which is the part and parcel of the God. So human life is meant for inquiring about the Brahman, the greatest. And we have to utilize this form of life. Otherwise, we are following the animal propensities. So the so-called education that we get in this world is not complete because it does not help us understand who we are. In Bhagavad-Gita 5.16, Krishna says that we can remove ignorance only by spiritual knowledge. So in the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to South India near Srirangam, and he saw Brahmana looking at the Bhagavad-Gita. He could not read it properly because he was illiterate, but he had tears in his eyes. So the Brahmanas who were very literate were reading it very fluently. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approached this Brahmana and asked, "What are you doing?" He said, "My spiritual master had asked me to read Bhagavad Gita every day. So, and I am not able to read, but whatever Guru says about Lord Krishna, I am meditating on that. So why are you crying?" Then he says that seeing Lord of the universe, becoming a chariot driver for his devotee, it's so heart-touching to see Lord in this condition. So that's why I'm crying. And then Lord Chaitanya said, "You have understood the Bhagavad Gita correctly." So this is what it is like. You need spiritual knowledge. With material knowledge, you cannot understand God. Though he was illiterate, but he could understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead because God is beyond material nature. So we have to utilize this human form of life to understand this knowledge. So, and Srila Prabhupada says that modern education is matter prominent. So when you see any machine working, it works only on gross science. But when you see any machine working, we should try to find out who is behind that machine. Only gross science is not intelligence. So we also have to know about the spirit soul. So matter cannot work without the touch of the spirit. Matter is dependent on the spirit. This is the real knowledge. So we cannot understand God by the mundane knowledge. We have to come to the real knowledge. And the process of mundane knowledge is bewildering. God is so vast that we cannot reach by mental speculation. So also, many people say that, I want to see God. So then Srila Prabhupada says that God is not subordinate to you, that you can ask that I want to see God, then God should come to you. No, you have to serve God. And when he is pleased by your love and service, then if he showers his mercy, then by his mercy, he will reveal himself to you. So we cannot just see God. You have to make an endeavor through Guru, that we have to make endeavor. Then when the Krishna is pleased, he will manifest in front of us. So the real knowledge is the knowledge to know about the soul, that is Jivatma, super soul, that is Paramatma, and their relationship. So when you know this relationship, when you know that Lord is actually a person, then you have, and you know about the relationship, you know that your position is to love God and serve God. And then with this knowledge, you have to love everyone else around, but in relationship to Krishna. So that is the actual knowledge. And the knowledge about soul is confidential, but more confidential than that, Krishna says in about this knowledge, which is confidential, is knowledge of Paramatma. And the most confidential is the relationship between Jivatma and Paramatma, because it leads us to the ultimate goal, that is to love the God. So through practice of bhakti, we can strengthen this knowledge. And also Krishna himself tells us that how we can get this knowledge. By always, Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita 9.34, Man mana mad bhakto, that be always thinking about me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me. So, so this is how we can know Krishna. But to get there, first to understand this knowledge, the first thing required is humility, because we need to surrender to Guru. We cannot understand this knowledge directly. So humility is like not to crave for respect, but to long for service by approaching a bona fide spiritual master in disciplic succession. So when we follow the instructions that our Guru gives with faith, we can receive this knowledge. So Guru is how we can receive this knowledge, because Guru is Tattvadarshi. He knows the process of transcendental knowledge, and he awakens our devotion by giving us Sambandha Gyan. He tells us about this relationship that we don't know. We are in ignorance, and he removes this ignorance through this transcendental knowledge. And when we surrender, we get rid of bodily designations. So because of bodily designation, we have false ego, and because of false ego, we think that we are the doer. And unless we surrender, the knowledge cannot be revealed, because only when we perform devotional service, Lord will reveal this knowledge. How? Because when we perform devotional service under the instruction of Guru, with loving devotional service, our heart is cleansed, because the knowledge first we hear through our mind, and then when we apply that knowledge, then it goes to heart, and that application is devotional service. So when you apply that knowledge, you become purified, then you come to that level to understand God. So Guru reveals your true spiritual identity, and how he reveals? By purifying our heart through devotional service. And when we engage our senses in service of Lord with love and devotion under Guru, our senses get purified. And also we rise to the platform where we can understand that all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, and we see presence of Lord everywhere. And then Lord will reciprocate in our heart. So once we have this knowledge, we develop equal vision towards all living entities. So in chapter 13, they also talks about what are the things of knowledge. Only it mentions 20 list of knowledge, out of which the main and the rest all is ignorance. So in the 20 things of knowledge, the first comes humility, because unless and until we have this quality, you cannot surrender. So and the next is these are the 4 main things, but there are more lists. You can read that. So, but the important ones are that you have to have pridelessness, the doer. That you have to let go of the doer mentality. That Krishna is the proprietor. You have to accept that, and then you have to accept a Guru, and you have to submissively listen from him. So when you have these, when you acquire knowledge to these process, then you can know the real knowledge of this world. You can liberate, that the real knowledge will liberate us from this bonding. So now this works talks about the transcendental qualities of the Lord. So how is Lord transcendental? Like as we discussed earlier, that with our limited capacity, we are not able to understand it. So let's see that the Lord, Lord is complete whole. Like his potencies of the Lord has immense potencies, and all of them are complete. And to understand this, we need to understand Lord's nature. So it is described in Upanishads that the absolute personality of Godhead has transcendental abode, that is known as Goloka, where he remains engaged in his pastime. But by his inconceivable potencies, he can simultaneously reach at every part of his creation. So in Vishnu Puran, this potency is compared with the light and heat of fire. Just like fire can distribute its heat and light from one place to another, similarly, absolute personality of Godhead, though fixed in his transcendental abode, can diffuse in different energies. But Lord's energies are innumerable. They can be principally classified into 3: the marginal potency, the internal potency, the external potency. So the material world is manifested through Lord's external potency. The spiritual kingdom is by Lord's internal potency. And we jivas and the demigods, they come under the marginal potency of the Lord. So jivas have choice either to go towards Krishna or to go away from Krishna. So we can use this knowledge to make the right choice. So, and the material world, although there is there is no difference between Lord and his energies, even though the energies that the Lord is emanating, but still Lord is the Supreme Lord is distributed everywhere, but he is not impersonal as the impersonalist think that his energies are everywhere, so it makes Lord impersonal. No. So Ishopanishad wants us not to approach God by the mental speculation. So we cannot realize this that the personal form of the Lord, just like and Srila Prabhupada explained this by how the frog in the ocean, like small size of the well, he cannot perceive the vastness of the Atlantic Ocean because of his well experience. He cannot fathom that there can be ocean. Similarly, the God, though we think in our own terms, but God is much greater than that. And he is like, he is complete whole, and whatever comes from him is also complete. So it's in Ishopanishad it says Om Purnamadam Purnamadam Purna Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadya Purnam Eva Vishishyate. So it explains the completeness of the God. Like it doesn't make God incomplete. Like just if you take a cotton ball and if you try to take pieces from it, eventually the ball will finish. But God is not like that. Even if we so many universes and energies are coming from him, it's still God is complete in himself. So that is God. So through his energies, God is present everywhere. But God has his own form in his spiritual world also. So through God is omnipresent. That means that God is present in his transcendental abode, but through his inconceivable potencies, he can reach everywhere. So God says that in Bhagavad-Gita, Lord Krishna says that in verse 9.5 that though I am maintainer of all living entities and I am everywhere, but I am not part of this cosmic manifestation. Because there is, for Lord, there is no difference between material energy and spiritual energies. He is the controller of different energies, and energies work under this direction, but he is not influenced by them. And everything that is born of him is sustained by him, and annihilates rest in his. So God is also present in each and every planet by the potency of his, by the omnipotency of his inconceivable energy. And because God is enters each planet, the planets are in the orbit in its original position. So that's God's all-pervading energy. And he sits as super soul, as Prabhu was talking, that he sits as super soul in everyone's heart. But he's controller still, even though he's sitting in our heart, but he is Paramatma, the controller, and our Atma is controlled by the Lord. So he is present to his all energies everywhere, and he is omniscient. He has all knowledge. He has complete awareness. He can see, as it is mentioned in the purport of this verse, that he can see everything. He can see past. He can see present and future. As a super soul, he is witnessing everything, and he knows everything, but no one knows about him. So, and the example is that he could remember the Bhagavad-Gita that was spoken to the sun god millions of years ago. Lord Krishna himself spoke Bhagavad-Gita to sun god millions of years ago. Arjuna was also present there, but he could not remember because the due to change of the body, living entity forgets, but Lord's body nor Lord's intelligence deteriorates because he is beyond material nature. Lord's body is Satchidananda. His position is always different from that of living entity. And also Lord says to Arjuna that we both have passed through many births. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, because we are limited to our bodies, but Lord is beyond that. And also Lord says that because he is omniscient, he can also see the future. And he says to Arjuna that, even if when Arjuna was refusing to fight, he says that even if you refuse to fight, they all are already dead. I can see that in the future. So Lord is just using us as an instrument in his hand. So it is not that we are the doers. We are simply instrument in the hands of the God. So we should not be proud of our abilities. And God is omnipotent. So in Brahma Samhita verse 32, it says, Angani yasya sakalendriya vritti manti, pashyanti panti kalyanti chiram jaganti, Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajamu. So Lord's senses are described as omnipotent. That means with any sense he can perform the activities of any other senses. So though Lord is the source of senses of all living entities, as mentioned in the verse, but he doesn't have material senses. His senses are spiritual. But because we are conditioned from the past life, our senses are material and Lord's senses are transcendental. But Lord appears in the form of Archa Vigraha, which is worshipped in the temple, is also the expanded form of the Lord. So it is through Lord's omnipotent energy that Lord accepts the offering that we give to Archa Vigraha. But the foolish people who have no knowledge of Upanishad, they think that Archa Vigraha is made up of material elements. But actually, people with little knowledge do not know Lord's being omnipotent, omniscient, can transform matter into spirit and spirit into matter. So Lord can do that. That's how he comes as a compassion on us. Like we cannot worship the vastness of Lord. So he comes in the Archa Vigraha form so we can serve the Lord and get purified. And because we serve the Lord, he manifests and also takes offering, but it has to be done with love. As Prabhu was saying, Bhaktya Mama Vijanati, because when you have to do unalloyed devotional service. So, like in Chaitanya Lila, Mukul Das once asked his young son Raghunandana to offer Raj Bhoga to the family deity of Gopinath. So Raghunandan took plate from his mother. When he was offering, he kept the plate, and after some time when he saw the plate was still there, full of bhoga, so he started crying to Lord, like, why have you not accepted this prasadam? So, and he was a young boy, he was very small. So Lord could see his simplicity, Lord could see the devotion in heart, and Lord actually ate. And when his mother asked for the plate, there was nothing. So she saw, what is this? Like, you ate all the prasadam? And he said, no, Lord ate it. And then when his father came, Mukunda Das came, then mother told him, then he again made an offering of laddus to Lord, and he told his son Raghunandan to go offer this to Lord. And then he was looking from behind the curtain. So when he saw then again Raghunandan cried, then the Lord, please accept it. So he was crying with so much devotion, love and simplicity that Lord came and actually ate that laddu. So it was only half eaten, and then the Lord realized the presence of Mukunda Das also there, and he immediately went in Archa Vigraha. So that half laddu was still in his hand. So this is how Lord reciprocates. So he is not Archa Vigraha. Actually, he is there. And he is there because acharyas have invited him. And these acharyas from the disciplic succession who know Lord, they have invited him with love. So he's sitting in that Archa Vigraha and offering, whatever we offer, he's accepting if that is done with love. So also, like, he has hands, legs, but they are not like us, as this verse explained, because we are part and parcel of God. But our senses are contaminated by material nature, but Lord's senses are not contaminated by material nature. Our body comes from matter, so we are embodied. Like, there is difference between our body and our soul, but Lord's body is transcendental. It is unembodied. There is no difference between his body and soul, but he is forced to accept body according to the law. Like, we are forced to accept body according to the law of material nature, but Lord, on the contrary, is transcendental. His body is always Satchidananda. He never changes his body. So Vedas also describe him Akayam, that he is without body. But what that means is that he is without the material body. His body is Satchidananda. His body is beyond material senses. That's why those who don't have devotion, they cannot understand this. So people with poor knowledge, Srila Prabhupada says, they do not know the omnipotency of the Lord. So you can appreciate Lord only to the degree you surrender him and to the degree you love him. So that's why generally people say that Upanishad talks about the impersonal aspect of the Lord, but we can clearly see that the absolute person, that the Lord is a person. Otherwise, there was no need to mention all these details about Lord's legs, Lord's like he can walk and he can like it's about his senses, because he is also the person. The difference is he is transcendental and we are material. So perfect knowledge means to know Lord in all his features, to know all his potencies and know how his potencies work by his will. That is real knowledge. And when we develop that real knowledge, it helps us to develop love for God. And when we develop love for God, we also develop love for everyone in relation to Krishna. So when we do that, then that is the perfection. That is how we can understand things as they are. Because right now we are in illusion. We are seeing everything but without Krishna. So that is why we are in illusion and there is a lot of bewilderment. But when you see things with real knowledge, You will see things as they are. So I will give to Prabhu.
So, we'll just wrap up very quickly. So, it's like when somebody is lost in the jungle, what do? They try to look for some familiar trails. You don't try to make your own trail. You try to see that what is the way that somebody else has already traversed. Because you would probably more sure about traveling that path rather than trying to create your own and then keep staying in the jungle itself. So this is the process. So I mean, it's a very, very practical process, for us to follow. So what are the different practical ways we can do this process? First of all, chant Hare Krishna, honor prasadam, eat only prasadam, surrender to a bona fide spiritual master. Because as Rohini was saying, a spiritual master will train you so that you start understanding this system, how Lord works. You can interact with the Lord and have a loving, and you understand your loving relationship with Him. You read and discuss Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. You serve the deity. You serve the deity. You be in association with the devotees, because staying and following this process, it will slowly start getting a change in the consciousness that we have. Like for example, when they turn a ship doesn't have a steering wheel. It just turns like that. What happens is they just slowly turn it, and then the ship automatically over a period of time it turns and it goes to its destination. So we have to give a little change to our consciousness, and then slowly, when we sincerely follow that process, the way changes, and then you are able to get to that destination. So we learn that we have to depend on Krishna. So this weekend we are celebrating the Independence Day. So what is the meaning of independence? The real independence for the living entity means to situate in the original constitution position. That is a real independence. We need to get fully dependent on Krishna. So if you want to be independent, then you are a client for Maya. Maya will take care of you. But if you are dependent on Krishna, if you are 100% surrendered to Krishna and the spiritual master, then this bondage, it melts away. When we carry Krishna in our heart, when our every word, deed, and activity, it's for Krishna, then the gates of the Maya, they open just like the doors of the Kamsa's prison. They open for Vasudeva. That's how they open. So Maya does not obstruct. And then where does Krishna leads you? He leads you to Goloka. And Goloka is a place, Krishna says himself, Yam prapaya na nivartate tad dhamam paramam. When one goes there, he never comes back. That's my story. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. That's a wonderful lecture. Hare Krishna devotees, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Please don't give any appreciation. If you are really like that, you can send a WhatsApp message. Online devotees and the devotees in temple, if you have any question or a comment, please raise your hand. Hare Krishna.
I was actually, this is a little bit different topic, but I was wondering, what are the 4 original verses that I was told that there are 4 original verses that Srimad Bhagavatam was, that sums up all of Srimad Bhagavatam, and that it was expanded from. I'm a little unclear about it, but I was told that this is like the sum up of all the scriptures, the philosophies, and these 4 verses. So I was wondering what those were. I was trying to look it up online.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mataji, for the question. I think I do not know on the top of my head, but probably I will try to.
2:9, 2nd canto, 9th chapter, 36, 35, 36, 37, 34.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Any other devotee have any question or comment? Devotees from the online. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu and Mataji. I think no other questions. Thank you for wonderful lecture. We want to hear from you more and more.
Thank you so much. Bhagavad-Gita ki
Jai.
Prabhupada.
Jai. Okay, please stand up, devotee. We are attending Aarti now.
Yeah, Prabhuji, that one maybe you can do.
Yeah.
That's it. Both variances or already done? Oh, sorry.
After what?
Yes, both have to open up. Sorry. Oh, I have to close it. Yeah, yeah. Where do you want to keep it? And to keep it here. Oh, to do so that. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Otherwise, everyone's head. Yeah, yeah. That's what. Cover up. Yeah.
After what, 2.5 years?
That's okay. Yeah, it's good. Good movement. You want to focus on them. Yeah, I was thinking, can keep changing. Yeah. Maybe you can lower it. Only the top portion is visible. Like this? Yeah, or maybe bend it. Yeah, I think it doesn't bend down, right? The camera doesn't tilt down, right? No. Yeah, this is good.
Krishna Prasaya
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare
Thank you, Kriti. That's a wonderful energetic Kirtan. Thank you, Vishnu and Kirtan for supporting. Kimberly Mataji and thank you, Seria, for Karta. Thank you, Jai Sudra Mataji, for the puja service. Please quickly go down. We will offer our Pranadhvani prayer.
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrind ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Navdeep Dham ki Jai. Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi की प्रियत्र गंगा की हरिनाम संकीर्तन की सामवेद भक्त वृंद की गौर प्रेमानंदे all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga all glories to Srila Prabhupada all glories to Hare Krishna Temple of Austin ki Jai.
नाथमदेव भगवान की जय, राज महाराज की जय। Hare Krishna devotees, thanks for attending the Sunday Speech program.